The roar of the crowd still echoed in Jungkook's ears, a thunderous wave of adoration that had washed over them all. But amidst the fading echoes, a chilling silence settled, a void where Taehyung's vibrant presence should have been. He was gone, vanished into the labyrinthine depths of the backstage, leaving behind only a lingering scent of his signature cologne and a haunting question mark. Jungkook replayed their last conversation, a casual exchange of banter and laughter, now tainted with a chilling undertone. Taehyung had seemed preoccupied, his eyes darting around the room as if searching for an unseen presence. But Jungkook, caught up in the post-concert euphoria, had dismissed it as mere nerves. Now, that nonchalance gnawed at him, a regret as sharp as a shard of glass. The backstage, once a bustling hive of activity, now stood eerily deserted. The discarded props, the scattered costumes, the half-empty water bottles, all seemed to whisper of Taehyung's sudden departure. A sense of unease crept into Jungkook's heart, a premonition that something was terribly wrong. He retraced their steps, his footsteps echoing in the cavernous space. The dressing room, usually a chaotic mess of clothes and makeup, was now eerily tidy. Taehyung's belongings were gone, as if he had never been there. A single, crumpled piece of paper lay on the vanity, a cryptic note scrawled in Taehyung's elegant handwriting. Jungkook's heart pounded as he unfolded the note, his eyes scanning the words that seemed to dance before him. It was a fragment of a poem, a melancholic verse about a journey into the unknown. But the last line, underlined in bold, sent a shiver down his spine. "Find me before the shadows consume me." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken dread. Jungkook's mind raced, piecing together the puzzle pieces of Taehyung's behavior. The restlessness, the veiled anxiety, the cryptic note, it all pointed to a desperate cry for help. He burst out of the dressing room, his voice echoing through the empty corridors as he called out Taehyung's name. But only silence answered him, a chilling reminder of the void that Taehyung had left behind. Jungkook's phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from their manager, his words sending a jolt of panic through Jungkook's veins. Taehyung's phone and wallet were found abandoned outside the venue. The security cameras show him leaving alone, getting into an unmarked black van. The pieces of the puzzle fell into place, forming a terrifying picture. Taehyung hadn't simply left, he had been taken. But by whom? And why? Jungkook's mind reeled, his thoughts a whirlwind of fear and determination. He had to find Taehyung to bring him back from the shadows that threatened to engulf him. But as he stepped out into the night, the city lights blurring into a menacing haze, he knew that the search for Taehyung would lead him down a dark and treacherous path. The black van, a phantom against the neon-streaked cityscape, was Jungkook's only lead. He'd watched the grainy security footage countless times, each frame etching deeper into his memory. Taehyung, his silhouette stark against the venue's exit lights, sliding into the vehicle with an unnerving calmness. Nostragel no hesitasjen, as if he knew his captors, or worse, as if he expected them. Jungkook's apartment, usually a sanctuary of quiet solitude, had transformed into a makeshift command center. Laptops glowed with maps and search histories, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and growing anxiety. He'd pulled in Namjoon, the group's de facto leader and strategist, and Yoongi, whose sharp mind and underworld connections were crucial. The van's plates were fake, Yoongi said, his voice a low growl, the glow of the screen reflecting in his dark eyes. Clean sweep. No trafe. Namjoon ran a hand through his hair, his usually composed demeanor frayed at the edges. We've alerted the police, but they're treating it as a missing person case. No evidence of foul play, they say. Jungkook slammed his fist on the table, the force of his frustration echoing in the room. Foul play? Taehyung's gone. He left a cryptic note, vanished into thin air. How is that not foul play? The note, now scanned and enlarged, lay on the table like a dark omen. Namjoon traced the underlined line with his finger. Find me before the shadows consume me. It's poetic, sure, but it's also a warning. A desperate one. Yoongi leaned forward, his gaze intense. The poem, It's familiar. It's from a collection Taehyung was obsessed with a few months back. A rare edition about forgotten myths and shadows. Shadows. Jungkook's voice was a whisper, not literal shadows. Yoongi clarified. In the context of the poem, they represent something else. Something dark, something consuming. Obsessions, hidden truths, maybe even people. A chill settled over Jungkook. He remembered Taehyung's sudden fascination with obscure folklore, his late-night reading sessions, the way he would sometimes stare into the distance, lost in thought. Had it been a warning all along? They spent hours dissecting the poem, searching for hidden meanings, for clues that could lead them to Taehyung. Each verse seemed to hold a veiled thread, a cryptic message that danced just beyond their grasp. As dawn began to paint the sky with streaks of gray, they had a breakthrough. One of the verses mentioned a hidden garden where whispers bloom. A place Taehyung had mentioned once, almost in passing, a secluded spot he'd discovered on the outskirts of the city. It's a long shot, Namjoon said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. But it's the only lead we have. The hidden garden was a labyrinth of overgrown foliage and crumbling stone, a forgotten oasis swallowed by the city sprawl. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a stark contrast to the sterile atmosphere of their apartment. Jungkook's heart pounded as he navigated the overgrown paths, his senses heightened, his mind a whirlwind of fear and hope. He imagined Taehyung's voice echoing through the silent garden, a desperate plea for help. They found it in the heart of the garden, a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees. A single, wilted rose lay on the ground, its petals stained a dark, almost black hue. And beneath it, another note, scrawled in Taehyung's handwriting. "They know you're looking for me. Don't come any closer. The game has changed." The words were a chilling warning, a stark reminder that they were playing a dangerous game, one with unknown rules and deadly consequences. The shadows were closing in, and Taehyung was trapped within their grasp. And as Jungkook stared at the note, a cold dread settled over him. They weren't searching for Taehyung anymore. They were being hunted. The note, a stark white against the dark earth, felt like a physical blow. "They know you're looking for me." The words echoed in Jungkook's mind, a chilling whisper that seemed to permeate the very air of the hidden garden. The game had changed, and they were no longer the hunters, but the hunted. Namjoon, his face etched with concern, placed a hand on Jungkook's shoulder. "We need to get out of here. Now." Yoongi, his eyes scanning the surrounding foliage, nodded in agreement. "This place is a trap. They want us here." The retreat was swift and silent, a tense journey back through the overgrown paths, the rustling leaves sounding like whispered threats. Back at Jungkook's apartment, the atmosphere was thick with paranoia. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the streetlights seemed to hold a hidden menace. "We need to find out who they are," Jungkook said, his voice tight with determination. "Who has Taehyung and why?" Yoongi, tapping away at his laptop, pulled up a series of encrypted files. Taehyung's recent online activity. He's been accessing dark web forums, researching occult practices, ancient rituals. Namjoon's brow furrowed. Occult practices? That's out of character for him. Jungkook's mind raced. He remembered Taehyung's sudden interest in obscure folklore, his late-night reading sessions, the way he would sometimes stare into the distance, lost in thought. It wasn't just a passing interest. It was an obsession. He mentioned a group, Jungkook recalled, his voice barely a whisper. A secret society, he called them. The Crimson Circle. Yoongi's fingers froze on the keyboard. The Crimson Circle? That's legend. A myth. A dangerous one. Myth or not, they have Taehyung, Jungkook said, his voice hardening. And we're going to get him back. The Crimson Circle, as Yoongi's research revealed, was more than just a myth. It was a shadowy organization, whispered about in hushed tones, rumored to possess ancient knowledge and dark powers. They were said to operate in the fringes of society, manipulating events from the shadows, their motives shrouded in mystery. Their search led them to a hidden bookstore tucked away in a labyrinthine alleyway. The air inside was thick with the scent of old paper and dust, the shelves lined with ancient tomes and forbidden texts. The owner, a gaunt man with piercing eyes, regarded them with suspicion. "The Crimson Circle," Jungkook said, his voice low and steady. "We need information." The man's eyes narrowed. "They are not to be trifled with. They are powerful." After a tense exchange and a hefty sum of cash, the owner reluctantly revealed a hidden room, a secret archive containing fragments of the Crimson Circle's history. They found a series of cryptic symbols, strange rituals, and a name that sent a chill down Jungkook's spine: Elias Thorne. Elias Thorne, the founder of the Crimson Circle, a man shrouded in mystery and whispered to possess an unnatural longevity. A man who, according to the ancient texts, had a particular interest in shadows that, as they delved deeper into the Crimson Circle's secrets, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Taehyung hadn't just stumbled upon them. He had been drawn into their web. They had seen something in him, something they wanted, and now they had him. But a sudden tremor shook the room, the lights flickering ominously. Yoongi's laptop screen went black, displaying a single chilling message: "You are playing with fire. Step away, or you will be burned." The message hung in the air, a stark warning. The Crimson Circle was watching them, their eyes everywhere. They were playing a dangerous game, one with stakes far higher than they could have imagined. And as the darkness deepened, Jungkook knew that they were running out of time. Taehyung was trapped in the shadows, and they were the only ones who could bring him back into the light. The blackout, a sudden plunge into suffocating darkness, was a stark reminder of the Crimson Circle's reach, their ability to manipulate the very fabric of their reality. The message, a digital threat etched onto Yoongi's lifeless screen, hung heavy in the air, a chilling premonition. "They're playing with us," Namjoon said, his voice a low growl, the faint glow of his phone illuminating his tense features. "They want us to back off." "We can't," Jungkook replied, his voice firm, the determination in his eyes burning brighter than the darkness around them. "We're not giving up on Taehyung." Yoongi, after a moment of frustrated silence, pulled out a small, portable hard drive. "I managed to download some of the encrypted files before the blackout. They might contain something useful." The hard drive, a lifeline in the digital abyss, revealed a series of cryptic symbols, ancient maps, and fragmented texts. Among them, a recurring motif, a ritual involving shadows, a summoning, and a name: the Shadow Weaver. "The Shadow Weaver," Namjoon repeated, his voice laced with unease. "It sounds ominous." Yoongi scrolled through the files, his fingers flying across the screen. "It's a ritual, an ancient one, said to grant control over shadows. Not just literal shadows, but the metaphorical ones. The hidden aspects of reality, the unseen forces." Jungkook's blood ran cold. He remembered Taehyung's note: "Find me before the shadows consume me." Was this what he meant? Was he trapped in some kind of ritual, a dark ceremony orchestrated by the Crimson Circle? The files also contained a map, a hand-drawn sketch of a secluded island, shrouded in mist and legend. "Shadow Island," Yoongi said, his voice barely a whisper. "It's said to be the Crimson Circle's sanctuary, their hidden stronghold. That's where they've taken Taehyung," Jungkook said, his voice filled with a grim certainty. "We have to go there." The journey to Shadow Island was a perilous one, a voyage into the unknown. They chartered a small, unassuming fishing boat, the captain a grizzled old sailor with eyes that held the secrets of the sea. The island, shrouded in perpetual mist, loomed in the distance, a dark and foreboding silhouette against the gray horizon. As they approached the island, a sense of unease settled over them. The air was thick with an unnatural stillness, the silence broken only by the rhythmic lapping of the waves against the hull. The island itself seemed to pulsate with an unseen energy, a dark and malevolent presence. They landed on a secluded cove, the beach a stretch of black sand, the water an oily, obsidian hue. The island's interior was a dense jungle, a labyrinth of twisted trees and tangled vines. The air was heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation, a suffocating atmosphere that pressed down on them like a physical weight. Following the map, they navigated the treacherous terrain, their senses heightened, their hearts pounding in their chests. The jungle seemed to watch them, its silent inhabitants observing their every move. They found a series of strange symbols carved into the ancient trees, markers that led them deeper into the island's heart. They reached a clearing, a circular space surrounded by towering monoliths, their surfaces etched with intricate patterns. In the center of the clearing, a stone altar stood, its surface stained with a dark, viscous substance. And above it, suspended in the air, a swirling vortex of shadows, a dark and ominous presence that pulsed with an unnatural energy. The Shadow Weaver, Yoongi whispered, his voice filled with dread. They've already begun the ritual. And then they saw him. Taehyung, his body suspended in the air, his eyes closed, his face pale and serene. He was trapped within the vortex of shadows, his essence being drawn into the dark energy. Taehyung, Jungkook cried out, his voice echoing through the clearing. The vortex pulsed, the shadows swirling faster, the energy growing stronger. The monoliths began to glow with an eerie light, the symbols on their surfaces pulsating with a dark rhythm. The Crimson Circle had begun their ritual, and Taehyung was the sacrifice. And as Jungkook watched, his heart pounding with fear and desperation, he knew that they were running out of time. They had to stop them, to save Taehyung from the shadows that threatened to consume him. But the Shadow Weaver was powerful, and the ritual was reaching its climax. They were facing an ancient force, a darkness that threatened to engulf them. All that you've asked for episode 4 twice. So I'll continue the story. Assuming you min episode 5 at episode 5. The shadows gripped the clearing, pulsed with dark energy, the Shadow Weaver's ritual reaching a fever pitch. Taehyung, suspended in the swirling vortex of shadows, seemed to fade in and out of existence, his form flickering like a dying ember. Jungkook's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the encroaching darkness. We have to break the ritual, Namjoon shouted, his voice strained against the oppressive atmosphere. But how? Yoongi, his face pale and drawn, pointed to the glowing monoliths. The symbols, they're conduits. We need to disrupt them, break the connection. The monoliths pulsed with an eerie rhythm, the symbols glowing brighter with each passing moment. The air crackled with dark energy, the shadows swirling faster, threatening to consume Taehyung entirely. Jungkook, fueled by a surge of adrenaline, charged towards the nearest monolith. He slammed his fist against the glowing surface, the impact sending a jolt of dark energy through his body. The monolith shuddered, the symbol flickering, but the rhythm remained unbroken. Namjoon and Yoongi followed suit, their efforts met with similar resistance. The monoliths were fortified, their dark energy acting as a shield, deflecting their attempts to disrupt the ritual. It's no use, Namjoon said, his voice laced with despair. We can't break through. Yoongi, his eyes scanning the clearing, noticed a series of intricate patterns etched into the ground, radiating outwards from the altar. The patterns, they're part of the ritual. They're amplifying the Shadow Weaver's power. We need to disrupt them, Jungkook said, his voice tight with determination. But how? Yoongi, his gaze fixed on the altar, pointed to a small, obsidian dagger resting on its surface. The dagger, it's the key. It's channeling the Shadow Weaver's energy. Jungkook's eyes locked onto the dagger, its dark surface reflecting the swirling shadows. He knew what he had to do. He had to reach the altar, to disrupt the ritual, to save Taehyung. He lunged forward, dodging the swirling shadows that lashed out like tendrils of darkness. He weaved through the glowing monoliths, their dark energy burning his skin. The Shadow Weaver, a figure shrouded in darkness, materialized before him, its form shifting and distorting, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed through the clearing. You cannot interfere, it hissed, its voice a chorus of tormented souls. The ritual must be completed. Jungkook ignored the figure, his focus locked on the dagger. He reached the altar, his fingers closing around the obsidian hilt. The dagger pulsed with dark energy, its touch sending a wave of icy coldness through his veins. He raised the dagger, his hand trembling, and plunged it into the center of the altar, disrupting the intricate patterns etched into its surface. A shockwave of dark energy erupted from the altar, the clearing shaking violently. The monoliths shattered, their glowing symbols extinguished. The swirling vortex of shadows faltered, Taehyung's form becoming more solid, more real. The shadow weaver shrieked, its form dissolving into a cloud of dark smoke. The ritual was broken. Taehyung collapsed onto the altar, his body limp and lifeless. Jungkook rushed to his side, his heart pounding with fear. He cradled Taehyung's head in his arms, his voice a desperate plea. "Taehyung, please wake up." Taehyung's eyes fluttered open, his gaze unfocused, his voice a weak whisper. The return journey from Shadow Island was a somber affair. Taehyung, though physically present, was a shell of his former self. His eyes held a distant, haunted look, and he spoke in hushed whispers, his voice laced with a chilling detachment. The island and the dark ritual had left an indelible mark on his soul. Back at Jungkook's apartment, the atmosphere was thick with unease. The victory over the Shadow Weaver felt hollow, tainted by the lingering darkness that clung to Taehyung. They had rescued him from the physical realm of the Crimson Circle, but his mind remained trapped in the shadows. "He's not the same," Namjoon said, his voice heavy with concern. "It's like a part of him is missing." Yoongi, his eyes fixed on the monitors displaying Taehyung's vital signs, nodded grimly. The ritual wasn't just a physical act, it was a spiritual violation. They tried to bind his soul to the Shadow Weaver. Jungkook sat beside Taehyung, his hand resting gently on his arm. Taehyung's skin was cold, his gaze distant. "Taehyung, can you hear me?" "It's Jungkook." Taehyung turned his head, his eyes flickering with a faint spark of recognition. "Jungkook, the shadows, they're still here." His words sent a chill down Jungkook's spine. The Shadow Weaver's influence hadn't been completely eradicated. It lingered, a dark echo in Taehyung's mind. They sought help from unconventional sources, consulting with experts in ancient rituals and spiritual healing. They learned that the Shadow Weaver's influence was a parasitic entity, a dark consciousness that had latched onto Taehyung's soul. It feeds on his fear, his despair. An elderly shaman explained, her voice grave. "You must help him confront his inner demons to sever the connection." The process was arduous and emotionally draining. They delved into Taehyung's subconscious, using guided meditation and dream therapy to confront the lingering shadows. They explored his deepest fears, his hidden traumas, the vulnerabilities that the Crimson Circle had exploited. Within Taehyung's mind, they found a twisted landscape, a reflection of his inner turmoil. Dark figures lurked in the shadows, whispering insidious doubts and fears. The Shadow Weaver, a shadowy entity, loomed in the distance, its voice a chilling echo of Taehyung's own insecurities. Jungkook, Namjoon, and Yoongi acted as anchors, guiding Taehyung through the labyrinth of his subconscious, helping him confront his inner demons. They reminded him of his strength, his resilience, the love that surrounded him. "You're not alone, Taehyung," Jungkook whispered, his voice echoing through the dreamscape. "We're here with you. We'll fight this together." Slowly, painstakingly, Taehyung began to reclaim his mind. He confronted the dark figures, silencing their insidious whispers. He faced the Shadow Weaver, challenging its power with the strength of his own spirit. The dreamscape began to shift, the shadows receding, the darkness fading. A warm light filled the space, illuminating the hidden corners of Taehyung's soul that he awoke with a gasp, his eyes filled with a newfound clarity. The shadows had receded, the parasitic entity severed. He was free, but the ordeal had left its mark. Taehyung was changed, his perspective altered. He had faced the darkness, and he had emerged stronger, wiser, more aware of the shadows that lurked within and without. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with gratitude. "You saved me." But as they celebrated their victory, a chilling realization dawned on them. The Crimson Circle had been weakened, but not destroyed. They were still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their moment to strike again. And they knew, with a chilling certainty, that the next encounter would be even more dangerous. The shadows were gathering, and the final battle was approaching. The fragile peace they'd achieved was shattered by a chilling discovery. The Crimson Circle, though wounded, was far from defeated. They were regrouping, their influence spreading like a venomous serpent, coiling around the city's underbelly. Yoongi, his network of contacts buzzing with activity, uncovered a series of disturbing patterns. The Crimson Circle was infiltrating key institutions, manipulating power structures, and acquiring dangerous artifacts. Their goal: to amplify their influence, to usher in a new era of shadow. They're preparing for something big, Yoongi said, his voice grim. Something that will plunge the city into darkness. Namjoon, his brow furrowed, pieced together the fragments of information. The artifacts, they're linked to ancient rituals, to the Shadow Weaver's power. They're trying to create a conduit, a gateway. Jungkook's blood ran cold. He remembered the swirling vortex of shadows on Shadow Island, the dark energy that had threatened to consume Taehyung. They were trying to replicate that on a larger scale. "We have to stop them," he said, his voice hard, "before it's too late." Their investigation led them to a hidden auction, a clandestine gathering of the city's elite, where the Crimson Circle was selling off stolen artifacts. They infiltrated the auction, disguised as wealthy buyers, their senses heightened, their hearts pounding in their chests. The air crackled with tension, the room filled with an undercurrent of dark energy. The artifacts, displayed on velvet cushions, pulsed with an eerie light, their surfaces etched with cryptic symbols. They identified the key artifact, obsidian mirror, its surface reflecting distorted images, whispers of shadows. It was the conduit, the gateway. As the auction reached its climax, they made their move. They disrupted the proceedings, seizing the mirror and exposing the Crimson Circle's presence. Chaos erupted. The room descended into darkness, the air filled with the sounds of screams and gunfire. The Crimson Circle's enforcers, shadowy figures with unnatural agility, emerged from the shadows, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. A fierce battle ensued. Jungkook, Namjoon, and Yoongi fought with a desperate ferocity, their skills honed by years of training and their determination fueled by their love for Taehyung. Taehyung, his spirit strengthened by his ordeal, fought alongside them, his movements fluid and precise, his eyes burning with a fierce determination. He had faced the shadows, and he would not allow them to prevail. They managed to escape with the mirror, but not without casualties. The Crimson Circle had suffered a setback, but they were far from defeated. They were enraged, their pursuit relentless. They retreated to their safe house, their wounds fresh, their spirits weary. The mirror, resting on the table, pulsed with a dark energy, its surface reflecting distorted images of the city, shrouded in shadows. "They'll come for it," Yoongi said, his voice grim. "They won't stop until they have it back. We can't let them have it," Jungkook said, his voice firm. "We have to destroy it." But destroying the mirror proved to be more difficult than they anticipated. Its dark energy was resilient, its connection to the Shadow Weaver's power unbreakable. They consulted with experts, seeking a way to neutralize its power. They learned that the mirror was not merely an artifact, but a vessel, a conduit for the Shadow Weaver's consciousness. "Destroying the mirror will not destroy the Shadow Weaver," an elderly scholar warned. "It will only release it." The realization sent a chill down Jungkook's spine. They were not just fighting a group of people. They were fighting an ancient entity, a force of darkness that threatened to consume them all. And as the city plunged into darkness, they knew that the final confrontation was inevitable. The serpent had coiled, and it was ready to strike.